yeah, they need bodies. They need more effective players. And just right now, this team is so incomplete. It almost feels like wrong to come to a conclusion through 20 games or whatever, because this won't be the team that goes into the playoffs. Like Brad Treliving, like just can't be done. Like it's just not a finished product. No. And if it is, then it's not a good one.
You're now listening to the Boys in the Booth podcast with your hosts, Harper Cody, Chad Melbourne, and Casey Abrams.
That's a big one. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Good evening and welcome to episode 191 of the podcast. Cody, Abrams, and Melbourne, all three of us with you for the second week in a row. And fellas, we are here past American Thanksgiving. We're at the quarter mark of the NHL season officially, and we're going to be talking about our three favorite teams, the Sabres, the Devils, and the Leafs, and our thoughts on them at the quarter mark of this NHL season. But first of all, how you guys doing?
Doing great. Excited for this week. I'm heading to the Leafs game on Thursday. They're playing Seattle, so it'll be the first time I've ever seen Seattle play in person, and exciting.
Stop by my place, Case. I can give you a Jared McCann jersey, or alternatively, I could give you one of my many Leafs jerseys if you prefer that.
I caught enough flack wearing a Devils jersey to a Devils Leafs game, so I don't know if I'm going to rock the Seattle.
Yeah, fair enough. I assume it's like a work thing. That'd be hilarious if you rock up and your coworkers are like, "Wait, what? You're like, you're a Kraken fan? That's odd." Doing well, guys. Paige actually has been in Aruba for the past week, so I've just been spending time by myself in my, bachelor pad here, but she's back tonight actually. And I wanted to ask you guys before we get into this episode here, do you guys know, the Reddit thread, Am I the Asshole? You guys are aware of that?
No.
People post on Reddit and they post a whole story, and at the end, the people in the Reddit comments tell them whether they think the poster is the asshole or not.
Right.
Okay. So I wanted to propose something to you as if we're on Twitter. So am I the asshole for not wanting to and actually not picking up my girlfriend from the airport? To me, going to the airport, driving there to pick someone up, just to drive them back when they could Uber or take transit, even though it's my girlfriend, she's been gone for a week. To me, that is the most pointless trip on the planet and extremely stressful for absolutely no reason, driving to an airport and then driving back. So I wanted to ask you guys, am I the asshole? And hopefully if you guys say I am, Paige doesn't listen to this.
Well, I hope Paige doesn't listen to this then, because if it was anyone else, I think you're not the asshole, because you're right. There's 63 Ubers sitting out front of the airport waiting to pick people up and take them wherever they need to go. And they're steps from the sidewalk. They're waiting for you. So it's so much easier than driving in there and picking someone up. Not to mention the timing. You don't know when they're actually going to land and when they're actually going to get through the airport and everything and pick up their luggage and all of that. So in a nutshell, it's a pain in the ass. I agree with you there.
That's what I'm saying.
But
listen.
But I've learned over 26 years, and I know better.
All I'm saying is that it's a 40-minute drive from downtown to Etobicoke, and depending on traffic, obviously, and it's on a weeknight. And to me, I just didn't think it was necessary to undergo that stress. But anyways, wanted to pose it to you guys. Harper, what do you think?
Well, it's also Pearson International, which is insane all the time.
One of the worst airports on the planet, according to a lot of people. So
anytime you can justify not making a trip there, unless you're getting on a flight to go somewhere hot and sunny, I think it's okay.
Okay, perfect. A 1-1 split. Thank you, Harper.
Yeah, well, obviously, I think it doesn't make any sense, but it doesn't have to.
Yeah,
I will say, though, Chad, at the same time, if your woman asks you to do something, you should do it, even if you don't want to.
That's very true. Listen, I think Paige and I have been together long enough that we have an understanding that it's a bit of a waste of time. I think there is a small part of her that probably wants me to pick her up. And who knows, maybe I will, maybe I won't, but we'll see. She's arriving in a few hours. So anyways, just wanted to pose that to you guys, because I think picking someone up from the airport is one of the most miserable experiences in life. That's all.
I agree.
Thanks.
Yeah, fair enough. She gets back from a great trip and you're just like, oh, great. Here's my ride to the airport. It's not like I'm going on a nice trip like that right now or anything. I get it.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, Harp, how are you doing? And then let's get into the episode here.
Yeah, doing good. Obviously getting closer and closer to Christmas, which is very exciting, and a lot of exciting things coming up for us, of course, and getting into World Junior previews and stuff like that to come. So yeah, I'm excited for what's to come. Already looking at the December calendar, and it's filling up nicely. I'm sure we'll see each other, and just looking forward to what's ahead for sure.
Okay, well, before we get into this episode, then, the meat and potatoes, talking about our teams at the quarter mark of the season, I wanted to do another mini game, and we've never done one like this before, so I'm hoping all goes well. This mini game is called Guess the Voice. I'm going to play you guys 5 NHL players in short little clips. All you have to do is guess who said that. I'm going to preface at the start here, it's not overly difficult. Some of them are pretty easy, but what I'm going to do is start easy and increasingly get more difficult. So either of you can answer here. I'm not going to say, okay, it has to be Case, it has to be Harper. Either of you can answer. You guys can talk about it, but that's what we're going to do.
I am going to try at this. I don't think I'm going to do well, and I don't want to do well because I don't know if I want to be the guy who knows NHL players by voice.
I think you guys are going to do all right. And, fitting for a podcast, we're doing it by voice here. Okay, so here's the first one, guys. Ready? Listen up.
Okay.
We got a really good team. Guys are feeling confident here. Even going down 2-0 in the third, I thought we were, going to end up winning the game. And
okay, you guys know that first one?
Jack Hughes.
That's a good guess, Case.
I don't.
Harp?
Oh my God, it's Quinn.
It's Quinn Hughes.
It's Quinn. Oh,
okay.
Like,
no. So collectively, then we'll say you're 1 for 1. If someone gets it, I'll give it to you.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm not far off. I thought it was Jack because they sound alike.
I thought it was originally Jack too.
Yeah.
Let's hear it back.
We got a really good team. Guys are feeling confident here. Even going down 2-0 in the third,
I could see how you.
Okay, yeah. Now the second time I can hear the difference. Jack is like, I don't know. He just he sounds a little bit different. They sound very similar, but yes, there is a difference there. So yeah, that's Quinn for sure.
Okay, I'll give you guys that first one. Like I said, collectively, if you both, or if one of you gets it, then I'll give it to you. Going to number 2 now, and we're just going to do number 4. I'll play a bit here. Tell me what you think. Tell me who you think it is.
Yeah, I mean, we just had to lead again, and then a couple of mistakes, and we're chasing it again, and
Any guesses? That's all you're getting.
Oh God.
This one's tough.
That's all you're getting.
That's and it's are they all players?
They're all players, and
Okay.
I thought honestly this one would be pretty easy. He plays for Columbus.
yeah, I mean, we just had to lead again, and then a couple of mistakes, and we're chasing it again, and
I mean, he sounds young, so I'm gonna say Fantilli.
He's Finnish. Does that help?
Line.
It's Patrick Line. I'm shocked. I thought you guys would get this one.
That does. I cannot picture him sounding like that.
Mistakes, and we're
I'm shocked. I really thought you guys would get that one.
I don't know. I thought maybe that was a coach. Like I don't know.
I guess he's been working on his accent on Fortnite.
Jeez.
For a Finnish guy, he sounds like an American. Like he really, like you can't tell. But okay, this is just going swimmingly, guys. Let's go to number 3 and 4 here and get on with the regular episode here. Number 3, tell me who you think this is.
My line, especially me, I wasn't having my best night, but turning too many pucks overs and was playing a little soft. But
any thoughts on that one? Swedish in the Pacific Division.
My line, especially me, I wasn't having my best night, but turning too many pucks overs and was playing a little soft. But
Swedish in the Pacific. Elias Lindholm?
No, close. Okay. Good guess.
Okay.
I think I really. Oh, do you know?
Leo Carlson.
Man.
I think I really overestimated your guys' abilities with this. Maybe I would do just as bad.
I think you think we know it because you know it.
I know, and that's probably the case, right? I
think that you know.
Okay, one more time. Okay, one more time. Swedish in the Pacific. Swedish center.
My line, especially me, I wasn't having my best night, but turning too many pucks overs and was playing a little soft. But
I mean, I thought Pettersson had a better accent than that.
Oh, that's who it is.
Is that your guess?
Yeah.
It's Elias Pettersson.
That's totally who it is. Oh, good job, Case.
See, that was actually good. I thought you guys would get that one quicker. Now, okay, this hasn't been going very well. You guys are not going to get this.
Can't wait to throw this at the end of the episode as a botched game, right, Chad?
I mean, honestly, maybe we should at this point. But, okay. You guys are definitely not going to get this one if you didn't get the last two, but here it is anyway.
They're a really good forechecking team. They're on top of you all over the ice. They compete hard, so it's definitely going to be a good challenge for us.
Any guesses? I can give hints. You can ask me for hints.
Yeah. Give us a hint.
Defenseman in the Atlantic. I'll play it again.
They're a really good forechecking team. They're on top of you all over the ice. They compete hard, so it's definitely going to be a good challenge for us.
Shit.
Plays on my team, the Maple Leafs.
They're a really good forechecking team. They're on top of you all over the ice. They compete hard, so it's definitely going to be a good challenge for us.
TJ Brody.
Former Buffalo Sabre.
They're a really good forechecking team. They're on top of you all over the ice. They compete hard, so it's definitely going to be a good challenge for us.
Former Chicago Blackhawk.
They're a really good forechecking team. They're on top of you all over the ice. They compete hard, so it's definitely going to be a good challenge for us.
Jake McCabe?
It's Jake McCabe. Okay.
How are we ever supposed to know Jake McCabe's voice?
Listen, guys, I knew you wouldn't get the last one. I thought you would get... Okay, so I had Crosby teed up. Harper actually got that one without even playing a full clip of it. We were having technical difficulties with that one. I thought the rest, I thought Pettersson, Case, I thought you would have got that one. I mean, you did eventually. Hughes, I thought you both would have got that instantly. I mean, you kind of did because you guessed Jack and then Harper guessed Quinn. So I don't know. I just, it was one of those things. And then Line is known for being Finnish but having almost no accent. So I don't know.
So how
listen, I think I overestimated your guys' abilities to guess that. And I feel like maybe I would be in the same boat. So I don't know. Botched game.
Case, you're telling me you don't watch Blue Jackets players post-games interviews, dude? No.
Whatever, botched game. I'll go back to the drawing board next week and we'll do a blind ranking like we should have done in the first place.
I like that though. That was fun. I started on my morning show, doing this name that movie quote kind of game for Lotto Max and Lotto 649, and so you have to hear the audio of a clip from a movie and guess what movie it's from. So I like it. I like the idea, but yeah, we got some improvement to do.
What if I did like McDavid? Would you guys have got McDavid? Can you hear him in your head right now when I say Connor McDavid? Can you hear what he sounds like?
Yeah, the guy who the media has posted his press conferences every day for the last 2 months. Yeah, I think I'll remember that one.
I guess. Okay, what about I'm just thinking of guys here. What about Brent Burns? Can you picture what he sounds like?
I don't know. Maybe I could tell that he doesn't have many teeth in his mouth.
Yeah, exactly.
Drew Doughty, another guy. I don't know. I was thinking like who would be recognizable.
I could get Doughty, I think. Yeah.
And then I wanted it to get progressively harder and harder. So you know what? It was a good opportunity for learning and growth here. And we'll come back in the future with some easier ones, and it'll be fun. How does that sound?
I'm disappointed in myself that I couldn't get the Jake McCabe one sooner, especially when you said former Sabre. Drew.
This might be a game time decision if we even keep this in, boys. Let's get into the regular episode.
All right, so quarter mark of the NHL season already, as we're almost into the month of December here. Holy jumping, and we're going to touch on our 3 favorite teams and kind of where they're at the quarter mark of the NHL season. So the Devils, the Leafs, and the Sabres, and just taking a look at the NHL standings right now. I think what we can say, boys, is that we talked about that American Thanksgiving kind of cutoff point, but I don't even know if it applies because a lot of good teams have had kind of rocky starts and have just been inconsistent. And we think that it's going to get better for a lot of teams out there, maybe even including our 3 teams, which we're going to be talking about here. So anyway, let's get into this. Case, we'll start with you, man. The New Jersey Devils, 9-9-1, 19 points on the season through 19 games played. Obviously, it's been a bit of an up and down start for your Devils. Obviously, a few key injuries. They're getting healthier and just walloped my Buffalo Sabres on the weekend. So thoughts on your Devils at the quarter point of the season?
Yeah, so far it doesn't look good, especially when we keep talking about that American Thanksgiving stat. But something you have to remember is this team was in the middle of a 14-game winning streak last year. So anyone can pop off at any time. And I believe that it's in the Devils to do that. There's been 3 things to start this season that have really hurt them and put them where they are in the standings currently. The first is goaltending. It has not been good. There's been flashes of some decent goaltending, but overall, Vanacek has suffered in the goals save above expected. He's well below currently. The team is 4th last in the league with an .876 save percentage. So goaltending certainly has not helped them. Turnovers in crucial areas has also hurt the team, but also hurt goaltending. So I guess you can put these hand in hand. This team can be outperforming and dominating a team for 20 straight minutes. They have 1 bad turnover in the neutral zone or in their own end, and the team doesn't know how to react, and they end up scoring. But something that I've been maybe attributing this to is the fact that they've been playing 11 forwards and 7 defense so often so far this year because of injuries. This results in you not having good chemistry with your D partner, not quite knowing where they are on the ice or who's covering you. It's a lot different playing Hamilton with Siegenthaler than Hamilton with, anyone else. Hamilton needs that defensive rock on the ice. Same as, John Marino, you pair him up with someone who can play a little more offensively, but it's not worked so far this year because they've had so many injuries. So that's the third thing that's been plaguing this team. He sure has missed considerable amount of time after a Connor Clifton hit to the head. I like Clifton's response to the media after last game when they got walloped by the Devils. Smith and him had a little bout, but he says, it's not over yet. He hates that he sure missed time, but he gets that in the other change room. It's not over. So he knows he messed up and he's ready to answer the bell. I like that. Anyways, Heischer's missed considerable amount of time. Hughes missed time. Myers missed time. Nosek, Lazar, Howla, all these forwards have been out, and it's resulted in guys from the AHL cracking the roster on forward, as well as them going 11 forwards and 7D, resulting in some tough turnovers and some poor goaltending. So snowballing. Other than that, the power play has been phenomenal. Jesper Bratt has looked out of this world. So I think that this is a team that they're very high in the expected goal share and it hasn't clicked quite yet, but at any time they're going to start popping off. And I think that 7-2 win over Buffalo is going to be the gun at the starting line.
Case, who is the seventh guy on the back end that they just need to play? Like, or is it the case where they don't want a 12th forward to play because they don't feel like they have 12 quality guys? Like, what's going on?
All of the injuries have been week to week at most, and it's resulted in a situation where they can't bring up their best forwards because their best forwards in the AHL are Nolan Foote and Graham Clark, and it was Tice Thompson. Guys like that who they're going to call them up for a couple games, and then they have to hit waivers. And you don't want to lose Nolan Foote right now to waivers. You want to bring him up when you think he gets a full chance, or when there's a long injury, something like that. So that's my feeling of what's going on there. The seventh defenseman at the moment is Colin Miller, so it does make sense to play him. But like, there's so many problems when you're playing 11-7. I think Toronto's experienced this as well, where, for one, something I never even thought of, but Ken Dynico mentioned it on there the other day, is the amount of too many men on the ice penalties for the New Jersey Devils is second in the league to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I was going to say, bet it's lower than Toronto.
The Leafs have 7. I think the Devils have 6. So it's ridiculous. But I think no one knows. Am I going? Am I not going? Am I going with my regular lineup? Am I slotting down to the next line to cover that one gap? Like, it's such a mess. But injuries has played a big part in that. And missing your top 2 centers results in, Michael McLeod stepping up and playing very well on the first line, but he's not Jack Hughes and he's not Nico Hischier.
Yeah, obviously. And then missing Timo Meier too. Not only are you missing some scoring and power play scoring too, but you're missing a physical presence as well, which of course just adds to it. But I asked about the lineup because when I was digging into some of the numbers, I noticed that they're not giving up a crazy amount compared to other teams. Like, I think, just checking my notes here, they're 14th in the league in expected goals against. So it's not like the D's been terrible. They just have been sort of unlucky in the goaltending department. But every line that I looked at that had Brendan Smith on it is getting outchanced every time they're out there. So I don't like, is that the problem? Is Smith not playing well, or is there more to it?
The Devils, you should read the comments on the Devils post because it's everyone calling for Brendan Smith's head at this point.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He's a likable guy and he has moments, he's unnoticeable, which is a good thing until he makes a terrible mistake. And it's frustrating. They've actually been playing him at forward the last 2 games.
Really?
He started as a forward. I believe in New York, he played winger for a while. And they have him back there now. They actually just sent down Wallman, which tells me that Meier's back, or they think that Smith is a great forward. So we'll see how that plays out. Colin Miller did start the season injured. So that maybe is a reason why Smith, got the start to the season. But you read the comments, it's Smith out, Nemitz up, Miller in, anything like that, basically. So hopefully that changes in the future here.
I just noticed when I was looking, like every other pair that has played together, at least, I forget what I set the slider at, but like whatever, 60 minutes together on Money Puck, every other pair was positive except for every pair that Smith has played on. So I don't know if that's them playing him further up in the lineup than he should be, or what's going on there, but I noticed it wasn't good. But then also another thing I noticed was the penalty kill on this team wasn't very good, despite, again, not giving up crazy amounts at 5-on-5. Their penalty kill's 23rd in the league right now. So do you have any insight into what exactly is going on there?
Yeah, the Norris finalist has only played 7 games this year.
Wait, really?
Not Norris, sorry. Selke.
Wait, I was going to say, I thought you were talking about Hamilton.
No, the Selke finalist, excuse me, has only played 8 games this year, 7 games. So that's definitely hurt the PK. And then, goaltending also fits. It's your most important penalty killer, and they've been the 4th worst in the league. So that's where I'd say I'm at with the penalty kill. Typically, they're pretty middle of the road on the PK, and that's what I would expect in the end. It's probably going to even out to there, especially with Hischier back. But they have the pieces. Like Eric Howell is a great killer. McLeod's a great killer. Hischier's a great killer. So I think that's going to even out eventually. But they also, another, statistic here, like in the world of statistics, not a lot of PKs. I think they're in the bottom 5 in penalties taken. So it's,
smaller sample size.
Small sample size, exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. I wanted to ask too, do you think they miss Ryan Graves and Damon Severson? I know Severson hasn't been good in Columbus at all. I don't know if he's been scratched or just benched after getting that $50 million ticket. But
now he's
you think they miss either of those guys?
I think Ryan Graves slightly. I don't think that they're missing Damon Severson, especially with him struggling in Columbus. He added, an offensive element that Luke Hughes is completely filled up. Mm-hmm. And he's probably after Brendan Smith, the second biggest terrible turnover player on the team. So, he doesn't make a ton of mistakes, but his mistakes result in goals.
Yeah, I think of our 3 teams, the Devils are probably, right now anyways, performing the furthest below expectations. But also of our 3 teams, probably have the best excuse for doing so because they've had injuries and stuff. But anyway, Harp, haven't heard from you in a while. What are your thoughts on New Jersey right now?
Yeah, I think we kind of had question marks about the goaltending a little bit. Obviously, Schmid is the goalie of the future there, but look, that's something that Fitzgerald may go out and address at some point. But I think that this team will get going if they can stay healthy here. Then they can get hot. We've seen that before. Obviously, last year it was ridiculous, that run that they went on with the 14 game winning streak early in the season. And just looking at the Metro, I think you've got the Rangers obviously at the top, and Carolina is starting to look more like Carolina. I think Philadelphia, it will come down to earth. We're seeing the Capitals kind of come down to earth a little bit now. Lost to San Jose the other night. Before that, they got walloped by the Oilers. So, I'm not too concerned with New Jersey. I think just a couple of injuries and just the goaltending has contributed to not the start that we expected, but they'll get hot here and they'll be fine.
Yeah, and they've only played 19 games, so they win their next 2 games, they're 3rd in the division.
Yeah, exactly.
I've heard that in the East this year, the cutoff might be like closer to 100 points for the playoffs, just because the West is so bad this year to start the season, and the East is so good. Like last year, like last episode, we mentioned that the cutoff for both was about 90 to 95 points. So say it's around 93. I've heard people talk that it could be closer to 100 in the East specifically. So it's crazy, man. There's so many good teams, and the Devils are certainly one of them. And like 9-9-1, if they get average goaltending, like how often do we say this? But if they get average goaltending moving forward, they'll be fine. Totally fine. They'll make the playoffs. No problem. Sports betting has rapidly risen in popularity, and I want to connect you all with an opportunity to get started or to get ahead. Having multiple sportsbook accounts is the most simple way to maximize your profits, and there's never been a better time to sign up. So when you visit our page at signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth, you'll be connected to all the sportsbooks in your region, along with a review of each platform and its unique benefits. All of these sportsbooks have valuable sign-up offers for new users, and when you register through the link, you will automatically receive the top offer at each one. When you use multiple sportsbooks, you ensure that you can always access the best available odds, which is key to successful sports betting. So if you want to take advantage of these benefits and support our brand in the meantime, please consider signing up for your next sportsbook at signupexpert.com/boysinthebooth. This podcast is sponsored by the best ticket app out there, SeatGeek. SeatGeek takes the confusion out of buying tickets, making it quick and easy to get the best deals on tickets to your favorite sporting events. Plus, Boys in the Booth listeners get $20 off their first ticket purchase on SeatGeek using the promo code BoysInTheBooth in all caps. So click the link in the description down below to download the app, and remember to get your discounted tickets using the code Boys in the Booth in all caps. Get great seats for a fraction of the cost with SeatGeek.
All right. Chadwick, let's go to you. Your Toronto Maple Leafs, always a fun topic, and they're 10-6-3 out of the gate through 19 games as well. 5-3-2 in their last 10, but I couldn't believe this when Steve Dangle tweeted out 5 wins in their last 19 or whatever. 5
in regulation.
In regulation,
5 regulation wins.
Yeah, exactly. So it's been kind of up and down a little bit for the Leafs to start, but only 2 points behind Detroit and Tampa Bay for third and fourth in the Atlantic. So let's get into your Maple Leafs.
Yeah, well, they're 10-6-3, so that's a .605 points percentage. They're second, like in the second wildcard spot right now. And you start to look at the Atlantic, man, and it's kind of scary. Like, there were lots of points up for grabs to start the season through the first 20 games or so. Like Florida didn't have Ekblad or Montour. Both those guys are back. Tampa didn't have Vasilevsky. Well, he's back now. Both of those teams are ahead of Toronto, plus Boston, another team who we thought was going to fall off and hasn't. Those were points that could have been up for grabs for the Leafs too. So really, like, after a pretty sluggish start to the season through 20 some odd games, they don't look great. But I can't say that, I expected them to be a top 3 team in the league. Like, you look at the numbers and it kind of makes sense based on what we expected going into the season. We knew that the defense was going to be worse. The only thing is we thought the offense would be better. And right now it just hasn't been. And I think that's a product of the first line not being very good with Matthews and Marner and Matthew Nyes there. That's been switched up now. So now Matthews will be playing with Nylander, who's been incredible, and Matthew Nyes. So maybe that will give a boost to the offense. But when I was looking at the numbers, I was like shocked, but also not shocked that they were 17th in expected goals for. This is a team that's consistently in the top 5 in the Matthews era. So that's pretty shocking. And then in expected goals against, I was not shocked to see that they are smack dab in the middle of the pack, 16th, giving up a lot of chances per game. Like, it hasn't been good. I said at the start of the season, they're probably going to give up more than we're used to. And that has exactly been the case. It's been because of a guy like John Klingberg, who hasn't been good enough, players up front like Ryan Reeves, who haven't been good enough, lacking a true third line center like a Ryan O'Reilly in the past, and just defensively capable bottom 6 forwards, Nola Chari, Pierre Engvall, Alex Kerfoot, guys like that who aren't in the lineup anymore. It's kind of showing for the Leafs. So I don't think the sky's falling in Toronto, but the team as it is right now, the numbers back this up too, just isn't good enough. But it's also not that surprising given how the roster was constructed heading into the season.
Yeah, and not to mention they dropped a few games early in the season when Samsonov was struggling. Well, they found the answer in that, and that's Joseph Woll. He's been great since he's come in. At least, statistically, he's been really good. There was a couple games at the beginning where I didn't think that they had a goalie to play, but he's been great. So they have an answer to that. It's consistency that this team really lacks. It seems like, when they're winning big, and when they're losing, it's, it looks rough. And that's the case in the top 2 players on this team. Who are supposed to be the top 2 players. Now Nylander's a goat for some reason. But Matthews and Marner, going 6 games where the 2 of them don't have a single point in the game. Like, that's unheard of with those guys. It's insane. 6 of Matthews' goals in the first 2 games, and he has 13. So, those guys are either hot or they're absent. And that's what's hurting this team, I think. It's just lacking consistency, and and it's resulting in all of the metrics being mid. Just absolute middle of the road of every single metric. That's what I have in my notes. I just quickly looked at these guys on Money Puck before we hopped on, and I was like, it's like 50-50, 50-50, 50-50, right in the middle of the road, 18th, 17th in the league on every statistic. It's except for too many men penalties.
Yeah, where they're number one, and they have been for the last few years.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's not like, like if I were to say to you that I don't expect the offense to get better, I would be lying, because, talking about consistency, Marner and Matthews over the past few years have been absolute models of consistency. Like Matthews almost scored 50 goals in 50 games the one year that he scored 60. Almost did that. Marner had set a Maple Leafs record for most consecutive games with a point, and that was either last year or a couple years ago now. I can't remember off the top of my head. But the point is, these guys have been incredibly consistent through their entire tenures as Leafs. I think, and I was kind of thinking about this. I think the problem is that they don't have a defensive line that they can play against other teams' top lines. So they're getting the toughest matchups at all times, and not only in the offensive end, but in the defensive end too. Like, I haven't looked at the start numbers. I think they're still starting quite a bit in the offensive end, but it just seems like they almost never have the puck compared to how often they usually do. So I don't know what's going on. I think like in the past, Sheldon Keefe would use a defensive third line with just fast like killers who would wear out other teams' top lines or second lines. And now they kind of just don't have the personnel to do that. And I feel like Marner and Matthews are suffering a bit because they are always tasked with shutting down the other team's top line. So to me, that's sort of what I have been seeing from it. It'll be interesting to see now what happens with Nylander playing with Matthews and Marner with Tavares, because you'd have to think that the Marner-Tavares line would be getting the defensive starts against the other team's top line, because, you probably trust Marner more defensively, and Tavares, like, you trust him more defensively than Nylander, I guess. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see going forward. I think they should have split up the top two lines way earlier in the season. You guys know, like, I've always been an advocate for playing Nylander with Matthews. We haven't seen Nylander play this well and also play with Matthews, so that could be an absolute recipe for success for this team. But I don't know, man. Like, they've got some real holes to fill, and now because of John Klingberg on LTIR, they actually might have some space to do it. So I'm excited to see what they do going forward, whether it's, a third line center or a stable top four defenseman. Whatever they do, like something is clearly going to happen. I don't know how soon, but definitely before the deadline. And whatever they do, I think should make this team better, because the personnel right now just honestly isn't good enough, which is, for the first time in a while, the Leafs don't look like a regular season juggernaut, which, my entire time watching Matthews and Marner, for the most part, except for maybe the first or second season, that's what they've looked like, an absolute regular season juggernaut. So it's a different team.
Something that you mentioned, mentioning the line matchups, that's something that had me confused, because I thought that Max Domi was going to flourish because of this, because you don't expect him to be out there as like the defensive line and playing against the other team's top lines. And you expect the top two lines to take, most of the attention of the defensive pairings from the other team. So you thought, I would have thought that Max Domi would have all this freedom to go out and score at will. But I mean, except for some assists, he hasn't really done that. And what do you think the answer, what do you think the problem is there?
Well, I'll tell you what the problem was. For the first 10 games of the season, Max Domi was playing the left wing and David Kampf was in the middle. And Kampf has not been good enough this season, not even close. Plus, he's a player that is an absolute black hole for offense. So after about 10 games or so, they moved Domi to the middle, called up Nick Robertson, and those two have been clicking like crazy, along with Calle Jarnkrok, who didn't move. He was in that third line right wing position the whole time. But that line has been actually pretty good recently, and I think the numbers are through it's either 6 or 7 games now where they've played together, dating back to before the Sweden trip. And I think they've outscored opponents like 6-5 or something to that effect. So we knew that line was going to give up some defensively, but we also know that they're also capable of scoring. Max Domi hasn't scored yet. You'd like to see the guy get a goal. You know, he has, I think, 11 assists through 19 games or whatever, but he's slowly starting to settle in. And you know what? I really like Max Domi now that he's playing in the middle. It seems like he can distribute the puck a lot better, and he's not, you know, stuck playing with David Kampf, who just creates absolutely nothing. That being said, Max Domi as a 3C playing with Nick Robertson on the wing, even though they can score, I already mentioned they give up quite a bit defensively. And if you think that like both of those guys are going to be on a line together game 1 of the playoffs, you're crazy, because they're not tough enough. They're not big enough. Like, it's just not an option. And I hate to sound like a boomer, but like those two on a third line together, it's not an option. You need another line that can shut down another team. Like I don't know. It just, they're irresponsible at times, and that just isn't playoff hockey. It's fun right now, and I like Nick Robertson and I like Max Domi, but I don't know if that's sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, according to all the boomers, Ryan Reeves was the answer, but now you have a 3-year contract in the press box.
That guy stinks, man. I don't know. I think priority number 1 is to replace Klingberg with a stable 2-way defenseman. Like I've told you guys, my dream defenseman would be Noah Hannafin. I think it makes so much sense. Re-sign him, give him, you know, a little bit less than Morgan Riley, and then you have 2 horses for the foreseeable future on the back end. Both on the left side, that's fine. You've got 2 great pairs for the next, 6 years. And by the way, Morgan Riley has been playing like incredibly this year. He has something like hold on, I have it written down here somewhere. He has 16 points in 19 games, and he is like, his pair of him and Brody get the toughest matchups every single night, but they've been handling it solidly this year. Morgan Riley has low key been maybe the second best Leaf this season. Like it goes Nylander number 1, Morgan Riley number 2, and then probably like Matthews or Tavares, and then it gets tricky after that. Obviously, we know Marner, like they need more out of Marner, but yeah, Morgan Riley has been low key good. But yeah, they need bodies. They need more effective players, and just right now, this team is so incomplete. It almost feels like wrong to come to a conclusion through 20 games or whatever, because this won't be the team that goes into the playoffs. Like Brad Treliving, like just can't be done. Like it's just not a finished product. No. And if it is, then it's not a good one.
Yeah. Just to go back to the top 6 and you know, the core 4, at least, it's the consistency that I mentioned before. When you look at these guys and you look at the fact that they're point per game players, but then you look at Matthews' last 5 games and he has 4 with no points. It's just they score multiple points a game and then they go quiet for a few. Now, a lot of wins in those last 5 games without any points by Matthews, but that just can't be. You need those guys being consistent each night and then support from the bottom 6. But when the top 6 is streaky minus Nylander and the bottom 6 is struggling, it's not going to work out. And, you know, it seems like they have a fix. McMahon's been great on that 4th line. He's been fun to watch, a little spark plug. And then Nyes is scoring, and Yarncroc, I thought you were going to say he's the second best player in the Leafs this year, because he's been
good.
He's been Swiss Army knife out there, scoring a decent amount of goals as well. So I don't know. It's funny to think that they've been playing 11-7 with a struggling back end, or at least one with holes in it. So it seems like this team has a lot to fix, but they're the highest in the standings of the 3 we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah, and that's why I said off the bat that the sky isn't falling. You know, like the power play is 5th in the league. The penalty kill could use some work, but it's not like it's in the absolute basement. I mean, I guess it's 19th. It could be a lot better, but like some things are going right on this team, and I do expect the scoring to go up. You know, like Matthews and Marner aren't going to be quiet for the rest of the season. So you want to talk about consistency. Nylander going 17 straight games to open the season
that's
with
what
a point. That was incredible. And then JT as well, he's been the model of consistency ever since he came to Toronto. Like, he's about a point per game every single year and gets a point almost every game. Like, it's, that second line has been incredible. And I will say too, someone we haven't mentioned is Tyler Bertuzzi. Start of the year, first 10 games, I was out. I didn't want to see him. He didn't look good. He looked slow, ugly, not the type of player they should have signed for 5.5. But over the past, 5-6 games, he started to settle in, and he's started to look pretty damn good playing on that second line with Nylander and Tavares. So I think the longer this team sort of takes and starts to settle in, I think the forwards anyway will get better. Another guy like David Kampf isn't going to be as bad as he's been this season for the rest of the season. I think he'll eventually figure it out once they figure out a line that can defend if he wants to be a part of that. But I don't know, man. Like I said, this team isn't complete, so it just feels odd to come to conclusions because, they've got now about $4 million to spend, and they're certainly going to.
Yeah, when talking about the Buds, I heard someone say this the other day. I forget who it was, but obviously everyone out there is saying that, for the Maple Leafs, the playoffs is the only thing that matters. The regular season doesn't matter. And you just hope that doesn't creep into that locker room and that, we just need to, it doesn't matter. We just need to get to the playoffs kind of thing. And that is true to a certain extent, but you're certainly looking for more consistency in all three positions with this lineup. I mean, the goaltending, Samsonov started off really poorly, and then Joseph Woll, who looks like the future in net for them, started off tremendously, and he's been a little up and down lately. Then on the back end, obviously, not really sure what Tree Living was thinking with the John Klingberg experiment there. But look, I mean, we know Tree Living and his track record. I think a move for a defenseman is coming at some point, and it may be for a defenseman off of the Calgary Flames. And then up front, you can really see how Marner is fighting it right now. And I would be more concerned about him, between him and Matthews, because when Marner is struggling, you can really see it. You can really see how it kind of wears on him. And so that is something that he'll continue to have to shake. But I think as the season goes along, those two guys are just so good that, they'll get going again. But Case is right. They'll have a big night where they put up 3 or 4 points, or Matthews has a hat trick or whatever. Then they kind of disappear for a few games. But man, I've been all over William Nylander the past couple of years, but he has been absolutely fantastic. He drives them offensively every single night. He's been doing it, and he's been making things happen every night, and they have no choice but to pay him after this year and keep him around. I mean, that deal is going to be massive now. I think the ship has sailed on the 8.5 to 9 million or whatever, but he's been fantastic, and I'm really happy for Nick Robertson as well, because he's had a couple of tough years, and he is a good goal scorer and kind of too good for the American Hockey League at this point, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So to see him come in and contribute and look, Domi is starting to get going now. You'd like to see him get his first goal, but he's been contributing. Bertuzzi was probably their best player the other night in that loss to Pittsburgh as well. So, obviously still early. It's taken some time for some guys to get acclimated here, and certainly don't like how we're kind of back to this team under Kyle Dubas a couple of years ago, where the bottom six, we were a little unsure about it and some of the roles. It looked good early on, obviously, when they took Reeves out of the lineup, and they've found some guys in Noah Gregor, for example, and whatever. So they'll have to figure that out. But I mean, this team is going to be fine, and it's looking very likely in this Atlantic Division that it's going to shake out that, you know, that usual quartet of Boston, Florida, Tampa, Toronto. They're going to be the four teams that get in the Atlantic. Detroit looks like the only one that could disrupt that right now. But yeah, not too worried about the Leafs moving forward. Just the consistency needs to improve a little bit. But we know Brad Treliving, he is one of those GMs who always asks whenever someone becomes available, he's in on it. They definitely talked to Patrick Kane or explored that or whatever. Obviously not what they need. And I think we know that a move for a defenseman is coming at some point with Klingberg now on LTIR. So yeah, not too concerned with the Leafs as the year goes moving forward.
You mentioned, you know, the fact that he might be trading for a Calgary defenseman. And Chad, you said that Noah Hanifin was your dream defenseman for that situation. That's not what you said to us. You said he was dreamy.
Dreaming or dreamy?
Yeah, you said Noah Hanifin's dreamy. I want him on the team.
Is that how I phrased it?
Yeah, just want
that's what you said.
Want all the good-looking guys on the
Pretty
team.
Weird.
I just want to see him wear what Nylander wore on that Swedish talk show where he was being groped by that 70-year-old woman. Did you guys see that clip?
Yes.
She was like grabbing his muscles and stuff, and said she called him like a groovy man or something. Anyway.
And then, so is this team going to play with 6 forwards and 4D next year when they have to pay Willie? Or what's the plan here?
I mean, listen, I feel like this topic could be an entire episode. So I'll give you the cliff notes. If you give him a $4 million raise, okay, he makes 7. That would put him to 11. That's more than you want to give him. That's more than he's probably going to get. If say he gets 10.5, okay, you basically just use John Klingberg's money to pay Willie when the cap goes up. Not that big of a deal. Then I guess you could say, okay, now they have 4 forwards who make more than $10 million. Well, JT has 1 year left after this one. He'll go down, essentially swap contracts with Nylander if they want to keep him. He'll be making, the Kopitar money, the 7 times 3 or 4 or whatever Kopitar got.
Yeah.
And, maybe a little bit more because the cap will be up, but I don't see it being a problem if you are committed to keeping everyone together. The bigger question is that the right decision? I think they could definitely do it and still ice a very good team, possibly even another top 5 team, depending who they fill out the team, or depending who fills out the team around those guys. But I just don't know if that is the right option if they lose again early in the playoffs.
Yeah, my comment was less let's get into the plan here and more Willie Nylander now is pushing himself into a $11 million category, just the way he's playing. So,
and I'll say this, like, you guys know I've been the biggest Nylander supporter forever, right? Like during the contract dispute, so many people were saying that it was going to be an overpay. And I am for sure on record at the time saying that he will outperform this contract. It's a good deal. He's a great player, blah, blah, blah. Didn't look so good in the first half season that he came back and stunk. But, he's been really great ever since. And I've been sort of pumping his tires from day one. But I have to say, I knew he was good. I didn't know he was drive a line on one of the best teams in hockey every single night good. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I knew he was special, but I didn't know that he was, putting himself in the conversation of top 10 players in the league special. Because honestly, like through 20 games, that's the conversation. Like, that's where he is. It's not like he's getting a bunch of secondary assists, he's getting primary points. He's scoring goals. He's essentially putting the team on his back a lot of nights. The days of people comparing or criticizing him of being a perimeter player long gone. He scores more goals from the house than so many really good players. Like, he gets to the tough areas. He wins battles. He's like 210 pounds. You know, not that he throws his body around, but he wins puck battles all the time.
You and I both know his head weighs 30 pounds.
Yeah, the flow adds an extra 10. But point is, I knew that Willie was good. I didn't know that he was great, and he's been great this year.
Ditto. Yeah, I did not see this. Well, actually, I think we kind of did, because it's a contract year.
Well, yeah, that's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, geez. Well, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And I got to give it to him for not having a care in the world either. Like, just going out there and playing. And so anyway, credit to him. But yes, it is a contract year, so it's not a surprise. But anyway, so that's the Devils, that's the Leafs for you, and of course my Buffalo Sabres. Huge win the other night over the New York Rangers. Love to see that. I was terrified going into that game, I'll be honest with you guys, because the Rangers have been so good to start the season. So yeah, I mean, looking at the Sabres, 500 record, 10-10-2, and 4-4-2 in our last 10. But consistency with a capital C has been the issue with this team. It's been one up, one down, and especially last weekend, that was clearly evident. Friday, 3 unanswered goals, I believe it was, to come back and beat the Pittsburgh Penguins at home in front of a good crowd. Great. Then just an absolute stinker on the road in New Jersey against the Devils, and Nico Hischier was certainly great in that game for a case. But just too many of those, like too many, just one up, one down, a good performance followed by just an absolute stinker. I get it, like back-to-backs, the second half of a back-to-back is tough, but also it's the NHL, and you have to have more consistency there. Sorry, Case, go ahead.
Yeah, just want to jump in and say something before you dive deeper here. To the consistency, this actually has me feeling like the voodoo has them making the playoffs, because I feel like the last 4 years, they're dominant in the November, December period.
10-game win streaks. Where is it this year?
Chad and I are just sitting, they're not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to make the playoffs. We keep saying that to you. Well, it's not this year, so maybe it means they're going to make the playoffs. Maybe they're going to be a late push team, or, I don't know. The voodoo says otherwise.
Well, and gets thumped by the Bruins in the first round, or sweep them.
Jeez,
never know.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you guys mention that. Yeah, like it's every year. It seems like they have a really hot start. They're 6-1 in October or whatever, and then they lose 8 in a row in November. Like, it's always November, just like the Ottawa Senators. November is a tough month. But they're just kind of staying right in the middle, and so I hope there's a big streak coming, that's for sure. But anyway, look, obviously looking at this team from top to bottom, Tage Thompson being out of the lineup, I mean, that really hurts the attack, and the same offensive firepower that we saw last season. Obviously, Tage was healthy the entire year, so him out is going to impact things. But, a guy like Dylan Cousins has had a slow start to the season, and Alex Tuch, who is going now, he had 2 goals in the game against the Rangers the other night. He's starting to go now, but it was a slow start for him, and they've got other guys out of the lineup right now, like Greenway and Gergensons, and so the depth takes a bit of a hit. I will say a guy like Casey Middlestat has really stepped up, and for a guy who we really weren't sure about for a while there, he was a high pick as well. Jeff Merrick told the story recently that in that draft, everyone thought they were going to take Martin Necas, who ended up going to Carolina. They called an audible, ended up taking Middlestat, and it didn't look good there for a while. obviously lots of coaches and managers in and out, but he's been great in Tage's absence. And with Cousins kind of struggling a bit, he's been centering that top line with Skinner and Tuck, and they were great, especially in that win over the Rangers. JJ Peterka, 15 points in his last 15 games against the Rangers in particular, and he's been close to a point per game to start the season. Obviously, Zach Benson is sticking around, scores that gorgeous goal against the Capitals for his first. Goal. That was just ridiculous.
Crazy.
So great to see him stick around. I think he's given this group a bit of a shot in the arm. And it's like last year, the big weakness for us was defending, right? Like, and we outscored a lot of problems. That's not really happening so far this season, but we have been better defensively, I think, which is good. I think the additions of Connor Clifton and Eric Johnson have certainly helped. I thought in the win over the Rangers, I thought that was one of Owen Power's best games of the season. And obviously, you know what to expect from Dahlin every single night. So I think we're defending a little bit better. We're just not getting the goal support. And you certainly expect that to pick up, especially when Tage gets back into the lineup and gets healthy. And then, of course, the goaltending. And we saw the news today where Devon Levi was sent down to Rochester, which is 100% the right move. And, I gotta give the Sabres credit. They tried it. Levi had a couple of ridiculous years in college at Northeastern. But guys, it is so rare to see a young goaltender come straight from college into the NHL right away and have success. Had that 5-2 record last season, .905 save percentage in a very small sample size. So you're thinking, okay, like this should be good, and he should be the guy. But man, it's hard, like to be a full-time starter in the National Hockey League, especially when you're a young kid trying to get the hang of it. He's definitely the future in net long-term, I think, for sure. But I'm glad they finally sent him down to Rochester. .876 save percentage. He's got a record below 500 to start the season. Eric Comrie has been up and down. Obviously, he's been injured. But Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen has been terrific. And, he had a couple of stinkers there after a really good start. And then he's picked it back up here. He had a hell of a game the other night in New York. I know I keep going back to that one, but he's been great. And so send Levi down, just go with two guys. And I think that will really help things, because obviously going with that 3-man goaltending carousel, it obviously doesn't work. It's hard for guys to get into a rhythm and really even things out. So it's been a lot of criticism, obviously, of the team's play and consistency so far. I've seen so many comments about we need to make a coaching change and let go of Granato and all of that. I don't think so. I mean, these guys we're still in it. We're only a couple of points behind, teams like Tampa and Detroit. And I will go back to what you said, Case. It's encouraging in a way that, we didn't have the great hot start out of the gate early, and then the big fall off happens. It's just kind of been middle of the road all the way through. So hopefully this team can get hot. We saw them certainly get hot late in the season and make a push, and we're just 1 point behind the Florida Panthers. But still have faith in this team to take a real step here, and they could certainly get into a wild card spot. So I think just health, better goaltending management, get Levi to kind of get his game back in Rochester, be more consistent. I think the boys will be fine.
Yeah, something to touch on a little further is Tage Thompson. The absence of him is definitely hard on this team, and is going to be hard, because he is like the definition of a play driving, like a line driving player. Every line he's played on so far this year has flourished. Greenway or Cousins when he played with Tage Thompson, that's when he started playing well. So it's going to hurt seeing him out. But with many of these injuries, I think you're starting to see the changing of the guard pop up with Peterka excelling and them calling up Yuri Kulich and them calling up Isaac Rosen and guys like that. They're starting to get the young guys playing a little more. And I'm hoping that that's going to give them some good opportunities and end up in them, playing more. Like, that's where I want to see this team go. Like, they've gone through a rebuild to have young guys to play. So I think the direction's good. I think if they can sort out the goaltending, then the good things are going to happen. And this team should be scoring more than they are currently, both analytically as well as just the eye test. Like, there's a lot of scoring players on this team. So I'm not overly concerned about Buffalo. The only thing I'm really concerned about is the division they're in. We've talked about that many times before. So it's going to be an absolute fight, and they're going to have to claw for every single point moving forward.
That's right.
Yeah, well, Harp, I wanted to touch on the goaltending. Being a goalie myself, that's my favorite topic. And, like Casey and I had a conversation during a podcast where we talked about Calder candidates, and one of the Calder candidates that, going into this season, people talked about was Devon Levi. And Casey and I both said, like, there's not a chance where he's a finalist or a Calder candidate, or even, for most people, a dark horse, because coming into the NHL as a young goalie is like impossible with no pro experience. Like, I don't know, it felt extremely rushed to me. I don't know why they insisted on having Levi in the NHL this early. It's not like he was a first round pick. He was a 7th rounder that they got as a throw-in in a trade for Sam Reinhart. And, I know we had the good World Juniors. I know we had a couple good years in college, but it just seemed like too much too soon for the kid. And even dating back to last year, and when they were carrying him as a third goalie along with Anderson, it just felt premature. It felt rushed. And, rushing a player can hinder their development. So I didn't like that decision to begin with. I'm happy that he's playing in the American League. I think he should stay there all season long. And maybe even next season. I don't think that's crazy to say. Dominate in a league again. Find your confidence. Get used to playing against men, because in college you really don't. It's a different animal, even playing in the American League. And then, of course, it's an even bigger animal and a beast playing in the NHL. So, it's baby steps. But
what do you have to say? It just reminded me of a comment I saw today, because remember he said in the press conference, you can't let the beast or leave the beast in the cage too long. Yeah. I saw a comment that was like, guess the beast is going back in the cage a little longer.
Yeah, the cage in Rochester. But yeah, so I don't know. I didn't agree with having him on the team to begin with. I think it's better for his development to dominate in the AHL. The second thing, I wanted to push back a bit, Harper. You said that the team is defending better this year, but the numbers really don't indicate that at all. In terms of expected goals against, they're 26th in the league right now, and actual goals against, they're 23rd. So their goaltending actually hasn't been that bad. UPL has been saving goals above expected, and Comrie is right about average, and same with Levi. So I don't know. Like, I don't actually think they've been defending better. I think they've been getting average goaltending and kind of allowing as many goals as chances they're giving up. So that was something I wanted to push back on. When it comes to forwards, though, on this team and the goal scoring, I do agree with you that it's bound to go up, especially when they eventually get Tage Thompson back. The goal scoring will go up. It's nice to see that Casey Middlestad has stepped up and has really become, an elite player. I don't think they have a single guy right now above a point per game, but Middlestad leads them. I think he has 20 and 22 or something like that in terms of points. And so that's solid. That's exactly what you need of Middlestad. So kudos to him for stepping up in Tage's absence. And I think this team will start scoring more, but I just had to say that the defensive numbers don't look good.
To find the middle ground on Harper saying the team's defending better and the analytics chat is the games that I have watched of Buffalo, they have looked like they've defended better. It's the losses, they lose 5 to 7 goals. And that's what skews maybe the numbers a little bit. When they're winning or when the game is close, they're defending well. But there's a few stinkers in there. And early on, there was they lost, was it Pittsburgh that had 7 on them? And the Devils have had 7 on them. And there's a few that they've allowed 5. So it's statistically skewing it a little bit.
I buy that. I buy that.
They have looked better defensively. Last year was not a good defensive year, but they're scoring 1 million goals. So you can afford that at times.
Yeah. But you know what? Like, they do have the personnel, and especially, you know, when power continues to develop, like, they're going to have a solid back end for years to come. I just had to mention that because, you know, they might be defending well at times, but the analytics don't point to that conclusion.
No, fair enough. And I mean, it's, you guys will laugh at this. Obviously, you know, big eye test guy when looking
Shocker.
at when how a team is playing. But from what I've seen from the new additions in Johnson and Clifton, they've looked really good. Ryan Johnson as well. I know you guys aren't familiar with him, but he was a late first rounder in the Dahlin draft in 2018. That was the pick that was a part of the Ryan O'Reilly trade with St. Louis. So we got him in that deal as well, and he since being called up with some of the injuries to the blue line, he has not been sent back down to Rochester. He's looked very good for us. But just going back to the goaltending a little bit, again, I'm glad that Levi was sent down, and I know that Kevin Adams believes in him, but it just seemed like no matter how well UPL was playing or Comrie here and there, it just seemed like no matter what, we're gonna keep putting Levi in. We're gonna keep throwing him in. That's what it felt like. And again, he is a fascinating guy, like the way that he thinks, and he's very talented, and I think could certainly be an elite goaltender and the guy for the future for us. But you know, just this was not managed well. I will say that. And but look, I mean, there is plenty of runway to make up for that. That's the good thing. And Rochester is a good team who could win the Calder Cup this year in the AHL, in my opinion. So he's going to get plenty of runway here to find his game again. I would be okay with the rest of the season, or at least until like the trade deadline, let's say, at this point. Give him enough runway to find his game, but you have to instill confidence in a guy like UPL. He's played well enough. He's put up the best numbers out of the 3. You have to give one of these guys an opportunity to take this and run with it. And I think that's going to be big moving forward. So we'll see. But, you know, again, with like your Devils case, I feel like our teams are similar in a lot of ways. Obviously, we're behind and a little bit and looking to take that step that you guys did last year. I just think that, you know, if certain things fall into place and the consistency picks up a little bit more here and keep getting saves on a consistent basis, that things will play out the way that we expected them to in the offseason.
It's funny. It's our two teams are on the outside looking in, and there's a lot of optimism. And then Chad's team is higher up in the standings, and there was a lot of, maybe not a lot, but some pessimism in there.
Isn't that always how it is with Toronto? No matter how well they do,
they could be 5th in the league, and they're like, they're not going to win in the playoffs.
But
I wanted to mention that about Marner, actually, because I feel like we dogged on him for like 20 minutes. The dude's still over a point per game. Like, sure, he's not as consistent, but like, man, he's still a damn good player. You know, so, and I feel like that has to be said, or else, you know, people are going to like listen to what we say and tell us that we're idiots when he goes and scores 5 points in a game.
It's a good problem to have when your best players are struggling at a point per game.
Yeah, exactly. Final thing I wanted to say, like, just going back to the Levi thing, I don't know, like, can you guys remember another 7th round pick who got this much hype Like, I've never understood it from the very start. He was picked in the 7th round, Devon Levi.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, was thrown in to that Reinhart trade as like an extra, like a prospect. I know he had 2 good seasons in college, but I never understood the hype. I look at guys like Sebastian Cossa, Jesper Wallstedt, like some good young goalies who were picked in the 1st round who are still not consistently playing NHL games. So I just never understood what the rush was to get him in and all the hype surrounding him. I don't know, Harper, can you maybe do you have an answer to that? Or am I just like totally misreading the player, or like what exactly is going on?
Well, look, his last 3 or 4 years have been excellent, and I just think with the way that he is technically, and just the way he thinks and trains and everything, like, you know, there is a lot.
Hold on. Let me stop you. The way he thinks and trains and stuff. Like, I've seen so many videos about that, how he thinks and trains, and like, you know, he idolized Carey Price growing up, and like he thinks he's a Jedi and that kind of stuff. And it's like, but like, there's so much coverage of him in the first place. Of course, we're all going to see that. I just don't understand it. I don't get why there's so much coverage of him and hype.
It was his World Juniors. He went from junior A to winning the World Juniors.
I know. It was a crazy jump, but like, if he never makes it as an NHL starter, I don't think that's you. I don't think that you can be disappointed. Like, is that crazy to say?
I think it would be disappointing now because he's had a great World Juniors and then great college numbers, and you know, everything is pointing towards him being good. So I would say so. Yeah.
I just think the pressure on that kid has to be astronomical. Essentially, come in, save this franchise who hasn't had a good goalie since Ryan Miller. You know, like,
well, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Keith.
Sorry, I've been searching on the side to try to answer Chad's question about 7th round goalie picks and hype, and he's a hypocrite, is what I've learned, because Garrett Sparks.
Yeah,
Garrett Sparks won AHL Goalie of the Year and a Calder Cup,
and he was a 7th round pick.
But
he proved with that much hype
playing pro hockey that he could dominate
the AHL on the best AHL team in the league.
Won a Calder Cup and goalie
Devon
of the
Levi's
year.
going to do that this year.
Maybe he will, but like, just do you understand my point though? It wasn't that disappointing that Garrett Sparks never made it as a starter because he was picked in the 7th round. Who cares?
I don't know that that's true. I think everyone was pretty disappointed when Garrett Sparks didn't make it.
Well, yeah, because they had to give away Curtis McElhaney and Calvin Pickard, but
I just think that I know what you're saying, Chad. I do.
I just don't understand the hype. Like, leave the kid alone, let him dominate, and then he'll come to the NHL and eventually be good.
I think the hype came from the World Juniors in a sample size last year. I'm not saying it should be there. I'm just saying that,
and his last couple of years at Northeastern, so it was warranted coming in. But look, I don't think obviously I'm biased, but I just don't see the fall off there like we've seen with other players coming in from college, like Jimmy Vesey, for example. All the hype around him, Will Butcher. You know, like guys like that who came in with a ton of hype. Scott Perunovich in St. Louis, there was a lot of hype around him, but we really haven't seen a ton of them. So look,
I'm not even like predicting a fall off. I'm just saying,
I know
it seems unfair to put that much hype and pressure on a kid who literally almost didn't even get drafted. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into his draft position because, like, I know he's been good over the past few years, but to me, it seems odd that everyone is putting so much stock into this kid who.
Well, it's because Buffalo it's because of the playoff drought and it's been so long and selling hope and all of that. So, but I think that, maybe they recognize that in a way, can't rush this kid, and now is going to get an opportunity to go and dominate down in Rochester. But look, I mean, I totally understand he is not on the same level by any means as, some of the guys that you mentioned, a Wallstead, a Skarov, Dustin Wolf, for God's sakes. I mean, how unbelievable is that guy? But I obviously am a little bit biased, but I see a bright future for this kid for sure. And again, good move to send him down finally, because it's not like this is ruined. There is plenty of runway here for him to get his game back, find his confidence, and be a good goaltender for us in the future. So,
yes, that is more talk about Devon Levi than I anticipated in this episode.
And also, we can't, all picks and all rounds of the draft, they matter. So we can't put too much into who was a 7th rounder and who was this and who was that.
I think they matter even less when they're goalies. Like, it doesn't matter when you draft a goalie, because you never know when a Yossi Saros is going to come out in the 4th round. Or
that's true.
Right.
What about UPL 2nd rounder who they had in their system forever, and I feel like he didn't get the same hype, or maybe he did, but it's just past now.
I remember him getting the hype. I thought he was going to be the next thing for 4 years in a row. That's why I think he's like 28 years old at this point, but he's still young.
Jesus, he's what, like 20, 24?
Yeah. It's taken a while for him. I even remember, before last season or whatever, when are we going to see this kid come up? Because, the
high elite potential in 2019 or whatever it was.
Okay, I do remember that, playing the NHL games, and he's like 95 overall for no reason.
And keep in mind too, I think part of this whole thing is that Levi is very much that is Kevin Adams. That is a Kevin Adams pick, not a draft pick, but they coveted him, and he was high on him when they acquired him in the Reinhart deal. UPL, that was Botterill's guy. Botterill saw UPL as the future netminder of the Buffalo Sabres, and
he's been their best guy this year.
Yeah, so, and what we're continuing to see is that a lot of Botterill's picks and bets turned out to be good ones.
Yeah. Okay. Good way to end it.
All right. There we go. So quarter mark of the NHL season. We're at that point, and there we go. A little summary on our 3 clubs, the Devils, the Leafs, and the Sabres. Enjoy the rest of your week. We'll talk to you again next week. Thanks for listening. As always, take care. Enjoy the rest of the games.
This has been another episode of Boys in the Booth with Harper Cody, Chad Melbourne, and Casey Abrams. Connect with the Boys in the Booth on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Boys in the Booth. Visit boysinthebooth.com for show details. And don't forget, you can become a patron of the podcast for just $1 a month at patreon.com/boysinthebooth.